Hey, Steve.
Hey, Jim.
Got a question for you, sir.
Hi.
Do you remember the last time you bought a new release on compact disc from regular retail?
Oh, wow. You mean one of those little round shiny things?
Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to the newest episode of Two Guys Talking About Records, the Vinyl Community podcast.
And CDs.
And CDs this time around. I'm Jim Gleason, and I am a record store owner.
Steve Carlson, and I am a record collector.
I should probably add that I'm a collector, too. I do that every week,
Yes.
but that's kind of the balance, the yin and the yang, if you will, of this podcast, the symbiotic relationship.
Ooh, symbiotic. I'm going to have to look that word up when I get home.
So you do remember the first CD you bought at, or the last time you bought a CD at retail?
Yeah, the last one I bought, it was a group out of England, kind of an a cappella group that does Christmas music, and we had heard them on one of those morning shows and really liked them, but they don't release in vinyl. So I went and I bought the CD. But boy, it is a rarity. I really don't even buy the used ones. How about you?
I thought about this, and I think the last time I bought a newer release compact disc, okay, this is going to hurt. The last new one was the Verve Pipe's Villains. So what was that, 1997,
Wow.
8? I've never been a big CD guy, so...
Oh, see, now I used to have thousands of CDs. And, still, I don't mind CDs. I play them in my car all the time. After Flood, I saved a bunch of them, these greatest hits. They're convenient. It's just that, right now, they take up space, not as much space as vinyl. And where do I want to put my money?
True. Well, that will be the subject of today's episode of our podcast, because there was a recent news story talking about how vinyl has outsold compact discs. And we'll get to that and the meat of that and the data behind that coming up here in a little bit. But I want to do our weekly check-in. What have you picked up in the past week that's been very cool for your personal collection?
I just showed this on my morning show. It was the Lords of Altamont. And it is a hard rock band out of California, and their album, it came in 2021, Tune In, Turn On, Electrify, and it's like MC5, the Stooges. They have this garage rock organ going on. It just mind-blowing. It was so much fun. I love that one. I brought in Miles Davis, Neferti, however you pronounce it. It just came out released on MoFi.
Okay. And
really, Davis is the one artist that I would pick up all MoFi because he is my favorite artist. And then the 3 O'Clock. Do you remember them?
I do. It's an 80s kind of college radio alternative.
Paisley, when the leader starts of the Paisley Underground. And I had shown an album a week or so ago, Salvation Army. It was on Record Store Day.
Yep.
Bought it at Radio Wasteland, by the way. And that was the lead up to this group. And I thought, I have a couple of their other albums, but I don't have their first. So I did pick that up.
Cool.
What about you?
Well, I some exciting ones this week. First off was this William Tyler Modern Country that was a gracious VCLT from you. Thank you very much. I did listen to that. Some really cool instrumental. I don't even know if I'd call it country music.
It's not. No.
It's just the name of the
album.
album.
It's called Modern Country, yeah.
But it's some great stuff, and I'm not familiar with that artist, so I'm going to be doing a bit of a deeper dig into that. But thank you again. But a couple of other really exciting ones. I picked up a Thelonious Monk Greatest Hits. It's a 1973 issue. I'm not too big on Greatest Hits albums, but there's some artists, especially if they're more difficult to collect, the early stuff like Monk. I've got a few, but man, are they beat up. So this is a good listener.
Yep.
This one is going to show off my inner Discogs nerd because I got a copy of Jeff Beck's Blow by Blow. And you know that I do a deep dive into the Discogs to identify specific pressings, which is going to be a subject of a later podcast, by the way. But I found out that this one is it's a 1975 issue, and this is Beck's second album, if I recall correctly. But in Discogs, it's listed as a no pressing identifiers, meaning that it's unidentified as far as which plant it comes from.
Okay, yeah.
And it's only notable to me because there's no copies for sale. It's never sold. It's upside down on the have versus the want list by not much, but it's like 23 people on the want list. So it's a unique piece, and it's in really, really nice shape. And I didn't have that in my collection. And so that's kind of cool. And it's a very, are you familiar with that Blow by Blow album?
Yes.
So it's jazz fusion rock.
Uh-huh.
And it's all instrumental, so it's very cool. I'd had it before, let it go at one point here in the store, so now I'm happy to have a unique one back in. But one of the coolest ones that I'm happy about came back into the collection. It's not so much a back in as it is an upgrade for me. In addition to the Michigan collection, which we have talked about before, I'm also always on the lookout for white label promo copies of albums. That's my old radio guy in me because I remember all those promos we had. So I was able to pick up and upgrade to a white label promo of the Tube's Remote Control from 1979. Are you familiar with that album at all?
I am.
It's their fourth album, and it's a concept album, which all revolves around TV, which is based on the book being there, which became the movie with Peter Sellers being there, about the description is an idiot savant who's centered around television and television viewing.
No kidding. So that movie came from that album? Or the album came from that movie?
The movie came from the book, and the book, Fee Waybill cited that as an inspiration for the basic idea behind the Tube's Remote Control album.
That's a great movie.
It is a great movie, and well, you don't want to think about the possibility of somebody like that making it up to the higher reaches. Okay, never mind. We'll stop right there. So anyway, this is a white label promo, and I was very happy to have that back in. I found a bunch of them this week.
Someday we're going to have to do a podcast on greatest hits because I'm going to have to go against you on that one. But didn't you also pick up something really cool, a cool collection this week?
I did. We talk about being personal collectors, but the backside of this is, as a record store owner, I am always on the lookout. And I picked up a neat classic rock collection. You and I have talked many times over the years about the collections that we get a hold of. We had the Massive Punk collection, which was just great several years back. I got the prog rock and psych rock collection that I'm still kind of digging through, and then little miscellaneous ones. But we did pick up another big one. This one is real heavy on the classic rock side, which is always great for this. But very, very cool story on this. I had been talking with the gentleman from whom I purchased this collection. We started back in late mid-November last year. And I kind of asked if he could wait till after the Christmas season, after the first of the year. Well, I didn't get a call in January, but he called me a few weeks ago and said, "Hey, you still interested in coming to look at this?" I said, "Yes." Normally, I like to hold off before Record Store Day because it's such a busy, hectic time, and we're spending so much money on Record Store Day stuff that the last thing I want to do is drop some larger coin on a larger collection. But since we'd already talked, I decided to go look at it. The collection was located over in the small town of St. Louis. It's about half hour, 45 minutes from the Midland area over toward Alma and that side of the state, middle of the state rather. And it was housed in an old opera house in the city of St. Louis, which is just very cool. I like old architecture, and I know you do too.
Oh, I love it.
So the gentleman from which I got these, he owns a furniture store now, but he used to be a mobile DJ in the late 70s and 80s, and he owned a record store in the 70s, late 70s, and into the 80s as well. So some of these are actual sealed record store stock from that era. Not a lot, but there's a few. But what was coolest about this, Steve, was the fact that he had this collection in his business, in his furniture store, which is a really nice furniture store. You can check that out online there. In this fantastic old building, which was an opera house from, I think, 1909, 1910, but now it's being used for his business. So the records were stored in the upper part, the second floor of this building, but off of a meeting room. He took me up there, and there was this shelving unit kind of sunken into the wall, had a stereo and a bunch of files and papers and stuff on there. He took the shelving unit and then kind of pushed it aside to like a secret passageway like you'd see in a Scooby-Doo episode, and slid it, and that was the access in this old opera house building to the attic. So I had to get on a stepladder and climb up the stairs a little bit. He shut the trap door back behind us, the secret passageway, and lo and behold, there was his shelving unit full of records that had been there since the 70s or 80s. Well cared for as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad he went up with you. When you said shut the door, I thought, hey, I got him up there. You are here, so you did make it back alive, but that would be creepy.
I am, but it's a great classic rock collection. I'm really looking forward to digging into it. Record Store Day, as we said, is around the corner, so the bulk of this has gone into our storage. I've cataloged maybe about 150 of them so far. I pulled out the the super duper stuff. Abby was helping me get through that. And we pulled some of the big stuff out just to safekeeping here in the store. And we'll get to it. But there's a lot of great stuff in there.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's in great condition, which from that era, stored in an attic, is always a bit tricky. So there's my fun dig. And I know you've been on one of these types of digs with me that where you look at a collection. It's a little different, isn't it?
It is. It really is. It's kind of mind-boggling when you're looking, just trying, okay, well, now what? What do I need? And for myself, I don't want to buy a big collection and have to deal with it. I'm just looking for certain things. And you...
A little opposite on me.
Yes.
You can always live vicariously through that.
Exactly.
So on to the subject at hand this week. I was inundated with folks sharing an article. It came from a few different sources. NPR was one of them on their website that stated for the first time since, 1987, that vinyl records outsold compact discs. Yeah. And I shared that article with you as well. My first reaction is like, wait, didn't I hear this? I've been hearing this for the past couple of years with news articles, but this one is a little bit different in the fact that it's talking about actual sales revenue. And I'm going to have to lean on you. You've got some big time background in the retail industry that I do not. Uh-huh. So you can probably decipher some of these. But that is correct. According to a report from the RIAA, which we can dig into as well. Yeah. In last year, 2022, vinyl, financially speaking wise, outsold compact discs for the first time since 87.
And the way prices have gone up, it's going to continue to do that. And I saw that too. And well, after you gave that to me, I go, wow, that's something. And when I was digging into it, a big part, last year, Taylor Swift sold 1.7 million records. That doesn't happen. That just blows my mind, which is why you couldn't get anything else because they were all tied up with Taylor Swift. I think Harry Styles sold over 700. And get this, last year, the Beatles, 535,000 Beatle albums were pressed and sold last year.
Wow.
That kind of there's still that kind of demand. So all these people, are still, this is the way they want to go with vinyl. And even when you think of CDs, what's happening now is they're digging, when CDs came out, they began to reissue all that classic rock that we had on album. So now we could have it on a CD. Now they're taking all these CDs that never were made into albums and reissuing them. So now we can go, yes. So we're rebuying our collection like the second time around here.
There's a line from the original Men in Black movie where Tommy Lee Jones is holding on to this little tiny thing saying, well, I guess I'm going to have to say it's going to replace CDs. Dated movie. He says, I guess I'm going to have to buy the White Album all over again. That's what you're saying.
It is. And you know what? They're from the Beatles. The people in charge of that's probably going, when is the next format coming so we can restart this all over again and bring in the money?
There's a lot of things I think that go into this story. The demand obviously is one thing, but citing NPR, this was the 16th consecutive year of growth for vinyl with the 41 million albums sold as compared to 33 million CDs. Now, the pandemic had a lot to do with this. You look at some of the figures from the RIAA that show this growth. And I was mistaken in saying that this news story is kind of repeated for the past couple of years, but the stories previously talked about the rate of growth, how vinyl outpaced compact discs. Yeah. Streaming, we'll get into that here in a little bit as well, but so the previous couple of years, the rate of growth of the sales of vinyl has been growing more steadily, and that was the push of those stories. So when I heard this one this past week, I thought, wait a minute, I've heard this already, but this is not the case. This is hard numbers coming from the Recording Industry Artists of America, the RIAA.
Yeah, the actual dollars that are coming in and where you're making your money at. Yeah, I read that in 2021, CDs have been on a decline. CDs, they peaked in the year 2000. 1 billion CDs were shipped out in the year 2000. Wow. 1 billion. Last year, what was it? 43 million? Something. Oh, man. It changed so much. I'm trying to think. What was that number? It was... I guess. Now I can't remember. But it has dropped so much. 2021 is the first year the actual CD sales went up for just 1 year, and now it fell back down again.
And that was attributed a lot to, I think, the pandemic and folks being stuck and wanting some more entertainment. I know from the record store retail side of things, as bad as it was for businesses being closed and ours being closed for a certain amount of time, we actually saw some increases because people still wanted to be entertained and they couldn't go to bars, they couldn't go to concerts. So it makes sense in that 20 and 21 time frame that there would be growth in these. But yeah, in looking at the compact disc sales, the physical music, it shows that little bump in 21 of for compact discs, but it dipped, and so they sold less in 22, and that was picked up the slackwise by vinyl.
Yeah, I believe. I've learned now is 446 million. So they went from 2,000 to 1 billion CDs in the year 2000 to 46 million in 2021. Wow. But when you look at albums, you think it was in 1977 was the peak year for records album sales, and in 77 they sold 344 million albums. But you had Frampton Comes Alive, you have Rumors, you had the Boston, you had Toto. there was some huge albums that came out. Then the next year, the following year, it dropped to 341 million, and it's had steadily vinyl began going down. And of course, when CDs came in, then it really went nuts.
And I think that's just because it was a new format in the late 80s. The portability of it said something as well. You could take your collection with you in a pretty much a zippered folder and switch them out in either a boombox or in a vehicle when they started carrying them in vehicles.
When you look at inflation, and so when the CDs came out, they were expensive at the start. And if you were to take the CD prices, what they were charging when they came out, I believe it was like 1984 or 85, if you put inflation on there, they would be anywhere from $48 to $60 right now. That's the price of a CD back then. But people began buying them, the price came down. Normal supply and demand doesn't seem to be working in vinyl, but for CDs it did and brought the price way down. That suddenly it just made more sense. CDs were cheaper than buying a record album.
Cheaper to buy, cheaper to make, cheaper to reproduce, all of that.
All the profit, much more profitable. That's where you could make money as a record store owner or anybody else. Boy, CDs was the way to go.
And it almost really did spell the death knell of vinyl. And there were record stores out there. There were people pressing records all through this time between the advent of this to, when vinyl was being outsold by compact discs. But it held on. And we'll get to a discussion on why that is. I mean, there's always been a niche in there, I think, as far as folks wanting that. But what, in your mind, is the changing factor now? Why are people more looking toward vinyl again? It's a completely different generation, number one, but what do you think is behind some of this?
There's always the nostalgia factor. It is cool. But generally, if it's just nostalgia or, hey, this is really neat, people tend to get out of it a lot faster. And right now, vinyl sales continue to grow. I think there is the whole thing that vinyl has a warmer sound. I mean, some people will argue a CD, no matter what, sounds better. It's crisper, it's cleaner, but vinyl there's that certain pop, there's that certain click. It's fun. You have the big artwork. It's fun to look at, to touch and feel, while a CD feels cold.
Yep. Well, the earlier compact discs too, and let's talk a little bit about the improvement of technology. Vinyl stayed pretty much the same from its inception in the early 1900s under the shellacs to the improvements in the 50s. And the 60s and throughout, where compact discs did see a little bit of that improvement. The storage capabilities of the early CDs were such that you could only fit so much on there because of the compression rates. That has improved with the digital and optical discs. Basically being able to hold more, and when they can hold more data, they can hold a better file size, less compressed version, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and so sound quality got much better, and it sounded nicer, and Yeah, it really changed that a lot.
But at its heart, you mentioned the warmer sound, and that's because the vinyl is really an exact reproduction of the original audio stimulus cut into that physical disc. Now, it is more prone to wear. Each play you make of a vinyl record, you wear it down that much more. Then there's handling, fingerprints, dust, you name it. You drop, you keep it in the sun, it warps. All of that comes into play, where that sets of ones and zeros on a compact disc aren't going anywhere.
Yeah, I have a little CD holder sits in my car. It sits there through the coldest of winter days to the hottest of summer days, and by God, they still play just beautiful.
And they go through. But to get, again, data speaking, to get that to fit onto an optical disc, you do have to have some compression.
Yeah.
And that's where this whole idea of, well, vinyl sounds warmer, well, that's because it's got more of the full audio spectrum. You're not getting rid of some of that information like you have to when you put it digital.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Now, the RIAA, we talked a little bit about that report that led to the news report, their annual revenue sales from 2022. And this figure here, I know we're talking audio, so people are going to say, what the heck are you looking at? But we're looking at this, shows the U.S. recorded music revenues from 2022. Streaming, well, let's talk physical first. The physical aspect of all music revenue stands at 11%. Digital downloads at 3%. Sync, I'm not quite sure what that is at 2%, but 84% of all recorded music revenue from 2022 came from streaming.
Are you in it? Do you have any streaming services? Do you use any?
Personally, I do not. My wife has Spotify, and that comes with a package of something. My argument against streaming has always been I'm a physical guy. I travel a lot to the Upper Peninsula. I spend some time up there, so cell coverage is not great in certain spots. Internet access is marginal in some spots and slow where I go, but that is rendered moot because now with Spotify and some of these other services, you have the ability to download to your device, so you don't need constant access to be able to stream, but that still counts as streaming. Yeah. So personally, I do not, but Kim does, and she uses that Spotify as well. And I think counted in on the streaming aspect, along with the likes of Spotify and Apple Music, is the likes of YouTube, because YouTube's becoming a big player in people discovering music, and I think that counts towards streaming as well.
Okay, because I don't have I have Spotify on my phone, but I don't pay for it. It's free, so I get commercials. I have a couple other on there, but I don't subscribe to any service. But I do get a lot off YouTube, so I could see if that's being part of it. Okay.
Well, in the YouTube, it depends too, because you'll get ad-supported YouTube channels, which we both know about as well. But people do pay for a YouTube Premium, which gives them an ad-free experience.
Which I don't.
And there's a separate entity called YouTube Music as well. I've dabbled with that a little bit, but it's specifically geared to compete with the likes of Spotify and Apple.
Which Amazon has.
Yeah,
they
Amazon
have that.
as well.
You used to be able to get that for free. Then, hey, we're charging. Oh, I'm not doing that now.
So the streaming music revenues, here's another figure from the RIAA. Paid subscriptions increased slightly in 2022. They break this up into digital and customized radio services. So you're thinking, what are the radio services like Stern is on? I don't know what those are anymore. To ad-supported and on-demand. The ad-supported and on-demand are going to be the likes of the YouTube and the ones, the ad-supported Spotify, where the paid subscriptions are all there. So $13.3 billion, that's it with a B, $13.3 billion in music streaming revenues from 2022, according to the RIAA. So, I mean, if you dig into that report, there's some very interesting things in there. Now, with the whole idea that Spotify, you can download these to your device, I guess that's a great big plus because you don't need that constant access to still enjoy your playlist.
Mm-hmm. And, it's probably eventually cheaper than going to Apple, where you have to buy, each one. Here, okay, I pay for my service, and now I can put them in and make what I want. And a lot of people love playlists. I mean, I personally would enjoy that. I think playlists are great.
And you can do that on YouTube as well. You can create curated playlists to just be, they're video-based, obviously, but you can do it for music and music videos. One of the things I think that is very interesting in this as well is the fact that the paid downloads of music has diminished tremendously across the board there. I'm probably one of the only few people, I guess I'm still old-fashioned, in the fact that I still have a several thousand song library stored on my phone. And, that's probably why I don't worry too much about streaming. But again, I'm kind of stuck to those few thousand songs cycling through if I choose to listen to that.
I got over 3,000 on my phone. I travel every week. I don't listen to the radio. I just hook up my phone. I have the songs that I chose that I want to listen to, and it's all over the ballpark, and that's what I like.
I guess theoretically we both could do that with the streaming service
I
as
guess
well.
we could, but we'd have to go back and find all those songs all over again. And this has been years of me finding these.
Oh yeah, my digital library goes back to the Napster days as well. I've been curating that for a while here, so I guess I've got some investment into that download.
Yeah. Well, I have an old my iPod, which now doesn't work, but I have I have a vintage one I've never used yet. 20,000 songs I had in my iPod, but it was just taken from my collection for the most part.
And to me, that still is a little bit of that physicality that we like with vinyl, is the fact that I still have this file. The other option, how many records have you bought recently that have a digital download card in that as well?
Less and less. You used to see them all the time, and now you don't. For instance, like today, I showed a record on my show, and I found that digital card, and I put it on the screen because I'm not going to download it, but maybe someone watching wants it, and once in a while people will do that. They'll write back to me, go, "Thanks a lot. Hey, I got that."
I still do that occasionally, depending upon what it is I get. I'll get that, and eventually it'll make its way into my iTunes and eventually onto my phone. But a lot of the record labels, I got some industry news on this a couple of years ago, they really want to phase that out, the whole idea of digital downloads, because they're getting maybe a 2 to 3% return on people actually, because they can track that.
Yeah.
Nobody's downloading from those download cards, with the exception of me and whoever you give your stuff to.
I guess I better go through and look at them all real quick and download fast because it's going to go away.
Well, they're going to go away because they're available on streaming in most cases. Not all artists. I know that there's all sorts of little mini disputes happening everywhere between artists and the streaming services as far as how they get their royalties. But that's the same old argument that has gone back as far as how do we get our royalties from downloads. That's what the big fight with Napster was again.
Yeah.
But it goes back even further. It's like, how are they going to get their royalties if people get a cassette recorder and record their vinyl or their compact discs or burn CDs in between? It's the same argument that's been going on for a while, is how to fairly compensate. So
yes.
But very interesting stuff coming from the RIAA. If you get a chance, we'll put a link to that RIAA stuff in some of our social descriptions. I'll send you that so you can post it up in yours and see.
Yeah, and we really should be having, since the CD is 40 years old, we should be having CD parties out there, doing special stuff to celebrate 40 years of the CD. Its dramatic rise to prominence, and it's coming back to earth and crashing.
I don't think that that's going to happen. I don't think we're going to see a CD store day happening anytime soon.
I have been to a couple record stores, though, where they are reducing vinyl and bringing in more CDs. It's the used ones because of the price of, obviously, records going up. And so now they're having a lot of people, they want the used CDs, and so they are going more heavily into that.
And that's understandable. I get calls. We're kind of an exception to that. I do not carry compact discs here in our store, as you know, with the exception of some local artists. But I get asked every week, do you carry CDs? I'm like, no, physically I don't have the space, but emotionally, I've got something against compact discs.
Sure, yeah. It keeps changing, and it's where the bargains are. For those, if you really love music and you want to get a collection fast, the used CD market is truly the way to go.
That's going to continue to grow too as the retail side continues to diminish. You go to these big box stores, they've got vinyl now. Can you find CDs in a lot of them?
Yeah. Much, much harder.
It's much harder to do, so folks can find them where they find them.
Which is what happened to vinyl. It got edged out and all became CDs, and you couldn't find vinyl.
So karma.
Yes. Karma's a bitch.
That's what we're saying here. Nothing against CDs, but seriously, even in my lifetime, I don't know if it's a proud fact that I toss out there, but I've never owned a component compact disc player. even at the height of their popularity. I had a computer that played CDs, and I had that computer hooked up to a stereo, so I still got good sound, but I never had a separate component CD player. And quite frankly, through my entire life, I may have had maybe around 50 compact discs in my life.
Yeah, no, I had thousands. And I had my CD Walkman, and when I'd be out flying every week, I'd come in with my CD Walkman. Then someone says, there's a thing called an iPod, Dad, one of my kids. Oh, iPod, I've heard of those. And so then I moved from that because I think it was the last one popping onto a plane with a CD Walkman.
And therein is where we're heading too, because now even the iPod, they don't make those anymore, obviously. But the whole notion of streaming killing off the digital download. I guess we need another Buggles song that is deal with that. The digital killing the download star or whatever it is. It'll be very interesting to watch. I hope personally, and because a collector, but also because of the nature of my business, that vinyl is able to maintain this. And I just hope that the record companies can figure out a way to not shoot themselves in the foot and price themselves out of whatever this resurgence is that we're going through.
Yeah, when I look at it, I was thinking about this the other day. If I spent $200 a month on records, it's worse than that. But we're just going to say $200 a month of records. When they were $25, there I got 8 records. Now at $40, suddenly I have 4 records. So do I spend more to keep that coming, or do I just get less records? But that hurts you because you went from, hey, he used to buy 8, now he's only buying 5. And it really this truly becomes the problem. And I know, when I was listening to your broadcast on what's coming up, how many records? 38, 40. Yeah. Well, we got 2 albums here or there, but it's like, well, okay, do I feed? Well, my kids are gone, so I don't have to worry about feeding them. But my wife does want to eat once in a while. But it just, where does it come from, or do you just have to cut back?
That'll be very interesting to see where the industry decides to go, especially knowing that vinyl, they'll look at these numbers from the RIAA and get dollar signs in their eyes.
Yes, they will.
And decide how much more can we get away with to charge in this. That's what I'm really afraid of. Now, from the used market, I think that's always going to be good. And that, for a lot of record stores, remains our bread and butter. We don't make a lot off the new albums. We make more off of, when Jim goes out and finds a collection in the old abandoned, not abandoned, but the attic of an old place.
Yes.
That's where the people come in that are getting into the music, because you can pay a lot less for those.
And it's exciting.
It is.
Very exciting. I have, and for all the music industry that's obviously listening to this right now, here's my suggestion. You want to bring prices down, bring back the flexi disc. That's what we did during the oil embargo, the good old flexi disc. We can cut these prices right in half, and they're still fun.
Well, you get the 180 gram and sometimes 200 gram.
We have a shortage on raw materials, but we're going to put out 200 gram 180. Well, why do we got a shortage? Because the records, weigh more than a little child.
And this is a subject for another podcast, but even those 180 grams come out warped once in a while. So in some ways, the flexi discs, you could correct them even better because they're so pliable.
Yeah, they were. I didn't warp up. They look great.
That is stuff for another day, especially when you see what I'm going to show you. I bought some Record Tech over here. This is what we call a tease in the broadcast. We'll talk about this next week because I'm going to show Steve what we got in-house here at the store and go from there. So any final thoughts on this whole idea of vinyl outselling compact discs for the first time since the 80s?
It was very surprising, but I guess you could see the uptick. It's just how far CDs have come down.
It is. Let's just hope that vinyl learns from their first downfall not to do it again.
Oh, corporations, oh my God, of course they will. History never repeats itself.
Never. We'll leave it at that. So, folks, thank you again for listening to two guys talking about records, even though we did talk about CDs.
Yes.
For a bit on here as well.
Happy 40th anniversary, CDs.
And they're gone. I'm kidding. So, Steve, where can folks hear you and see you on your Vinyl Community channel?
Yes. You can find me at Steve Carlson Vinyl Community. I'm very original with my name.
Same as two guys talking about records.
Yes.
But every Sunday, Steve puts out some great content about his finds. Your midweek as well.
Yep, Sunday and Thursday.
And then our channel is the Radio Wasteland Records on YouTube. Look for us on Facebook and that Instagram thingy as well.
Yep.
So until next week, thanks, Steve.
You bet. Thanks, Jim. Had a lot of fun.